My name is Charles Ogalo. At GenAfrica, I'm in charge of product design, marketing, portfolio management, and building relationships for the company. Also, I'm part of the team that coordinates strategy in coordination with the directors of the company. Also, I'm in charge of all corporate affairs. I joined GenAfrica in 1996. Prior to this, I served in several key positions at Kenya Commercial Bank. My last posting was as Chief Manager, International Banking and Trade Finance. Prior to that, I also served as the London representative of the bank for 4 years. Prior to that, I was also the marketing manager of the bank, designing mainly new products for KCB. During my 11 years service at KCB, I spent 4 years as the first London representative of the bank, marketing business in both Europe and in America. During my 16 years in banking, I also had the opportunity to serve for 5 years as at the First National Bank of Chicago in the Nairobi branch, progressing from a credit administration position to relationship management. In addition to that career path, I've also had the opportunity to serve on several key parastatal boards in Kenya over several years, and recently served as the chairman of EcoBank Kenya, as well as the chairperson of the CDSC in Kenya. I have also had the opportunity to serve on several key committees of regulators, and also served in several positions within the financial markets sector in Kenya. GenAfrica Asset Managers, formerly known as Genesis Investment Management Limited, is the second largest asset management firm in the East African region, providing quality investment management services both in Kenya and Uganda, mainly to institutional investors, and the company was established back in 1996. Centum invested in GenAfrica back in the year 2013. It was a time when the industry was beginning to go through several changes. One such change was the compression of fees due to very severe and tough competition from competitors. At the same time, the major shareholder, Genesis Asset Managers London, had taken a conscious decision and strategy to close its affiliates, its small affiliates around the world. And Nairobi or Kenya was one such decision that was taken by the board to exit. We therefore went through a process of looking and marketing for a partner that would not only afford to buy the company, but also one that would bring in a strategic fit to the business. It was at that point that we sourced about 7 suitors for the business. We settled on one, but it didn't go through. So how does Centum come in? James Moria, the CEO, got privy to the sale through some of his associates and friends in the industry. One day before we signed up with another buyer or a preferred buyer, James or Centum approached us. The board went through a process of vetting, and the vetting process was really looking for somebody who would bring in a strategic fit, somebody who had a strong brand, somebody who was well known, somebody who had the networks in the industry, and that would add ultimate value to the business going forward. And that really was the competitive edge that Centum got. Finally, Centum put in an offer, which was then accepted to the board. If I recall, Centum invested about 1.079 billion shillings, again back in September 2013, acquiring 73.4% of the business of GenAfrica. This, again, was the beginning of a journey that would transform the business. The transaction saw the exit of a multinational investor to a local investor. Centum was well established in the East African region, was a strong brand, and a company that knew and understood the business exceptionally well. What did this transaction bring to us at GenAfrica? One was a company that had very strong local networks, that had strong synergies with the business, but also that was aligned strategically to the future of the business. This then enabled us to go through a very smooth transition with like minds, but also we're very proud that we were able to retain 100% of the clients after that transition with Centum. Indeed, one of the greatest testimonies is that this was a company run by very youthful and very knowledgeable and very professional senior team, and that brought in a lot of confidence in the eyes and in the minds of our clients. I would look at the impact of Centum to the business in 4 ways. Number one was what one would consider a very strong local partner. Centum was very instrumental in helping us and supporting us in growing the assets under management, because that's really what drives the business. Also, we're talking about a company that in itself had a very strong and reputable reputation. That provided for us stability to the business during the transition. That's number one. So, strong local partner. Number two is new products. As I mentioned at the beginning, when Genesis took the decision to exit, what we were lacking and what we needed in the company was diversification in products. And therefore, Centum, being the company it is, as diversified as it is, having ownership and investing in several companies around the country and into the region, was able to provide that support for us to be able to bring in new products to the business. We, in the course of our business or in the course of our relationship with them, we were able to launch 3 new products. One is what we call the cash management. The other was income drawdown, and we also launched a private equity fund, a regional private equity fund. These are options that we were able to then avail to our clients, and again to show our clients that we were a company of the future and a company that was very strategically driven, thanks to Centum. Number 3 is beyond the product diversification. One of the things and one of the strategies that we then brought on board was that of expanding and increasing our geographical roots. Because of its expansive nature into the region, Centum was able to support us enormously in growing the business in Uganda. I do recall during our relationship that our assets under management grew to about 7.6 billion Kenyan shillings, and they were able to support us in Uganda in securing roughly about 11 new mandates. Our greater mission was not just to be a regional player. Our mission, to a very large extent driven by a very strong vision, was to become an African player. In this respect, it was necessary at the time to rebrand, to give the company a more broader look. Thanks to Centum, we were able to use what you call the Centum Shared Services to help us drive the rebranding of the business and renaming of Genesis to the GenAfrica, the current brand that we have. Last but not least, underpinning our initiatives and our strategy with client retention, growth of new business, strong investment return performance, and the products that I've mentioned. During the relationship with Centum, we were able to expand the assets under management literally from Kenya shillings 96 billion shillings to 199 billion shillings by the time they exited. That translates to achievement of over 100%. And again, we attribute this to a very strong, very strategically driven relationship between ourselves and the majority shareholder then, that was Centum. When we talk of James Moria, and to a very large extent his colleagues at Centum, including Fred Murimi, one can very vividly remember really 2 things that they brought on the table, much attributed to James. One is that the management at Centum are visionary, extremely visionary. As I mentioned, when we started, we were really a small, very closely held company. The culture was that of a family. What Centum brought to us was a culture that looks forward, that is visionary, that is expansive, and that is really what James and his colleagues brought on the table. So one is a more strategically driven approach to business. Number 2, I give them a lot of credit in their style, in their structure of managing the affiliated or the affiliates. What do I mean? to a very large extent, we were given total autonomy to run the business. James was more concerned about the success of the business rather than having a hands-on approach on the business. So we were given total autonomy to run the business the way we wanted it. And that is really what I can attribute to the success that we had when we worked with them. We were given a free hand to drive the business, to grow the business, but also to steer the business into the future. That I attribute to James Moria. Post Centum, one would look back with a lot of satisfaction that Centum did support us as management to build a very solid, strong foundation into the future. Happy to say that Centum exited the business with assets under management at 199 billion shillings. In the last 2 years, that business has literally grown from that figure to a closing figure at the end of July of roughly 275 billion shillings. We've seen the earnings continue to improve. We've seen growth both in human resource, and we've also seen tremendous growth in new mandates that we've won, particularly last year. And the business continues to grow and perhaps it will continue its position as a major player in the market. We have no illusion and we have no intention to be number one, but as we speak, perhaps we are, because the assets have grown tremendously. We will continue to grow the business. We'll continue to have the same vision that we set out to roll out, which is to be a major player in the region and a major player in Africa. And that's really where we are. The business continues to grow. We continue to use these 4 pillars that we set out to achieve. 1 is retention of clients. 2 is looking at solidly at new mandates. The other one is really launching new products and also looking at the expanding our market into the region. And that's really where we are. The Ugandan business is growing well and is growing strong. And we're very, very happy as a company. But I think the question here is really the future. And the future is that of expansion, but also expanding the business with a human face to it. Thank you.